Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another just edition of Closing the First Deal. Today, we have the honor of having Chris with us. He's going to be telling us about his experience with closing on his first house. So before we get started, I would like if you guys would hit the subscribe button, also click the like button. It definitely helps to push this out to more people, and hopefully they find value. So with that, take it away, Mr. Gavin, Dr. Gavin Adams.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chris. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Just, I got working a bit, so I'm trying to fit this in before I head in for the shift.
Okay. Thanks again for joining us. Can you elaborate on what inspired you to begin your real estate journey?
I'd probably say definitely my father. My father has really been, he's always been in kind of investing in properties. He's always been kind of in the market, even from when, like, I guess I was a child. Like he's always kind of like looked out for people, like as far as like helping them essentially acquire their first homes, or whether it's if he had the capabilities, like purchasing a home and having them pay pretty much rent it to own kind of thing in a situation for like family, friends, and stuff. And even when I kind of graduated, because I played soccer I got a scholarship from Canada to start. And ended up getting a soccer scholarship to go to school in the
Ooh.
States. So my parents had saved money for me to essentially pay for school to start off with. And because now when I had the scholarship, it's like I had a bunch of money that I could have used but they had saved to pay for my schooling. Then all of a sudden, like they don't really need it for my schooling now. And my dad was kind of like, well, I can, buy invest like pretty much an investment property by one of the universities in Hamilton. It's one of the cities by Toronto, and he's like, yeah, I could rent it. So he kind of took. I'm like, do whatever you want. For me, I'm like, it's your money. Like, it's not my money. Like, go ahead, do your thing. Like, so obviously, but he had me sign off on the paperwork kind of thing. I didn't really have because at 18, I was more focused on soccer these times, and so he kind of like, so he had pretty much a rental property under my name, and he kind of took care of the management, and he was kind of helped fund my lifestyle while I was in school because I couldn't work while I was playing and everything. So that was kind of my first I guess, dabble into real estate.
Oh, that's nice. Give it up to Dad. That was good. Now,
Yeah.
honestly, that's like I haven't heard a lot of people say that, so I just wanted to give that two steps. Like, that's awesome that he set you up like that. Like, that's definitely something that I've noticed other cultures do. So that was cool. I just had to throw in the kudos, but keep going.
So yeah, I mean, but for me, I guess for me to personally, when I started to, I guess, look into it myself, I want to say is when I settled down with my wife. Like, is when we started looking to like, okay, we're getting married. Um, she's like, yeah, we're not living with your parents. Like, we need to start looking to like get our own place, to start our family. And that's kind of what took where I now started looking into interest of how can what's the best property, what can we afford, and kind of taking a very, I guess, looking into the market and what's valuable, what's not valuable, what's a good purchase, what's a bad purchase. And that's when I kind of now all of a sudden started talking to my dad, like I wishing I was paying attention all these years. And when he was trying to like put me on the game, I was kind of like, oh shoot, like he kind of, and a lot of the stuff I'm kind of reading, I'm like, oh, I learned this before. So it's kind of a full circle moment, but it wasn't like I said, I was probably around 26 or so when I finally started with like trying to focus and be like, looking into, I guess, actually getting into the market myself, kind of without help in a way. So
Um,
Yeah.
Trying to figure out which direction I want to go in with the
mm,
questions because I feel like we could talk about like your childhood growing up. You know what? I think I think that's what's more important, right? So you've been around real estate growing up. I don't know which
yeah.
facet your dad was into it in, but can you elaborate on that a bit more? Like, did you go to college knowing in the back of your mind, you know what, real estate is going to be something for me in the future because of that foundation? Is that something, is real estate something to where you knew that you would be able to focus on whatever major you wanted, but you have real estate to fall back on? Just like walk us through that, please.
For me, it was more or less growing up. My dad had a family business, so we had a convenience store. Kind of growing up, so we kind of so working in the family business, you kind of got exposed to kind of all kinds of like I guess investments because like they had their own jobs and like the convenience store was like kind of like the side hustle in a way. So we kind of like we were like kind of like in Canada, I would say we're one of the first kind of like Dollarama kind of stores, like kind of dollar stores in the area. So before it was a big thing. So back in the 90s, my parents had like one like the first. So they had like the post office, you could get the lottery cards, and they had all the cheap dollar items. So we used to like, I'd go do the purchases, and then I kind of learned a lot more about, I learned, at that point more on the how you can use your businesses to help write off stuff for your homes and like to, you know, acquiring stuff for the house, through your business and kind of like how to, on the accounting side of things, to how to, use some equity from like both sides. It was kind of, I learned more in that aspects of, from my dad of how to kind of utilize those, like corporations for your benefits. And then, like I said, he purchased like he was big into acquiring properties from early on. He's always worked in the States, so he's kind of from when I was in high school. He got hired by an American company, so he's been living in Minnesota from majority of my in my adulthood. Um, and so he, like I said, he kind of was around 2008 when the market crashed, so he was busy buying up properties over in the States when all was rock bottom. So like it's kind of like he's always kind of done that. When I like so I've always kind of been aware of how to do it and what he looks for because a lot of his tenants he has they'll pay him a year up front in rent. So he's good at finding good tenants that'll just like here's a check for a year. So you're not just chasing them down. You're not worrying about whether it's bouncing or not. The check's gonna clear for the month. It's just here's the money up front. So he's
That's
been good at
nice.
yeah, so he's been good at getting those kind of tenants. He's starting to kind of now he's getting closer to retirement, so he's kind of transitioning out of he's trying to look to now sell off a lot of these properties around and kind of just relax, I guess. So but growing up, like I said, it was just having that experience of just tagging along for the most part. He didn't he was he's an engineer by trade, so he's good at any kind of electronic kind of fixer, like fixing stuff like that, for electronic kind of like lighting, sound, all that kind of stuff. But like as far as handiwork, he's good at finding people in those fields. Just through his experience, he has a guy for everything. Um, so whenever it came to the property upkeeps, he always had somebody that he could fix it for the cheap. So it kind of put the value on networking for me. So even like stuff like being in the fraternity and all that kind of stuff and knowing somebody in different fields and being able to bounce off that information has always been a big thing for me.
Oh, that's awesome. You gave so many valuable points in just talking about your dad and his story. And like Gavin was saying, there's like so many different avenues what I want to ask next. But I guess I'll start with like, so yes, you were around real estate, but what did your dad like implement like I don't know, like certain things that he would have you do growing up? Like, did he talk to you about like savings or were you just soaking in because you were around him? So you would just he listen into conversations that he would have around real estate. Like, did he implement
Uh,
any strategies with you?
so he kind of in a broad scope, he kind of introduced me to investing. So more, I wouldn't say more so real estate, but more, stocks, and like trading and all that. I remember I used to have he gave me there was an app where it was just like it was almost like a dummy account. So it would give you like $100,000. You could invest it into whatever, and it would track stocks in real time. And you can kind of see at the end of the year, like, did you make money for like, would you have made money? And it's kind of I got to play with that, and then we would actually use real money. Like after I kind of got the hang to kind of actually invest into actual companies. So that was kind of I was more, focused in that area of investing more so than real estate. To be honest with you, like growing up, um, I didn't. I guess looking back at it, I could be like, I, there was a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, like I guess it is what it is.
Yeah.
I was more focused on like just like stocks were I found more interesting at the time. So I ended up like doing a lot of business and like finance background in school and stuff and accounting. So it's kind of like it led me into that field for schooling.
Oh, that's awesome. So you got to find your passion young through just like experiencing and dabbling with different things and trying it before you got to college. Because it sounds like some
Yeah,
people, they get to college, they don't know what they want to do. So you were at least had like, oh, well, I like numbers. Like,
yeah. So
okay. Um, and then I guess so for your first deal, you said your dad did the first deal for you. So really the second deal, I guess, sort of.
yeah.
So the second deal when you were 26 and you brought your first property, like, are you comfortable with sharing your financial approach for buying your first for that property?
Yeah. So like I said, I have like a background in finance and like accounting. So I like making projections and forecasting, kind of like, okay, this is how much the house costs. This is how much I need to have saved. Um, by this date, I'll have this amount, like based on like, so like I did a lot of I guess the first thing I did was I found like a budget template off of online, off of Google. Like I Googled like, so I put in my income, my expenses for the month with my wife's stuff. And we kind of were able to say, okay, at the end of the month, we have X amount left over. And we're like, okay, so for a down payment, we were planning on putting 20% down. So based on the average cost of housing at the time, you're looking at like 100,000. So we were like, okay, based on our expenses, it's going to take X amount of time to hit the 100K based on our savings, the amount we're saving per month. At this time too, we're just starting out our careers. So our incomes are at like, rock bottom essentially. But we know that, they're going to increase. The biggest problem, I guess, with trying to close the first deal is we were looking at resale homes. At the time, we're going 2016. The market was red hot in Toronto. So people were spending every house was 150,000 over asking, $200,000 over asking, and so it was frustrating where we would go to try and buy houses, or like because like essentially our budget was like we're like okay like like I think 500,000 was like our limit, like we're like that's what we can afford, and be comfortable. Where like it'd still be tight, but we could be like comfortable with at that range. And it was just like they would go to the houses and be like, yeah, let's for 500, but we're taking bids on Tuesday. And like, and I wasn't, for me, I'm like, cause I said, I'm a numbers guy. I don't like, you tell me your house is sick. Like, I don't want to overpay for something where just like, I'm just bidding because I'm guessing somebody else is going to bid this. They're like, oh yeah, that's not enough. You need to do like, and I don't know if it's the agent trying to get a better commission. I don't know. And there's a lot of unknowns where I was just like, I kind of got turned off on the whole resale, just the way the whole blind bidding, the bidding wars was going on. It was for me, it didn't, I didn't want to like all of a sudden go to the bank after I got a house and they're like, yeah, your house is not worth that. You now have to come out of pocket to pay the difference for your mortgage. So that was like a fear of mine where I'm like, yeah, I overpaid for this house. So that's where we started looking at new builds. Like so new build homes. All my life I grew up in like I was always like the first person to live in the house, like the two homes I lived in growing up. So the new build, it kind of was attractive in the way where it had a longer closing. Um, so most of them are closing in 2 to 3 years. And because like we said, we're starting off and we're like, okay, it gives us 2 years to save our down payment. It gives us the time to save for, furniture, appliances. And then on top of that, we can choose a floor model, the floor plans, the area, the plot of land, all that kind of stuff now. And it's like, we're the first to move into it. So you don't have to worry about, fixing stuff up. A lot of the stuff that comes with resale, like is it the structural, anything that's not listed, like a lot of the home inspection kind of stuff that we kind
Yeah.
of didn't have to concern ourselves with. And like I said, for me, being able to like this is the price, and me knowing what the price is and what I have to save now, and that helps me now obviously set up my finances to I guess hit those, be on track and be like, okay, we can afford this, and by this date we'll have the 20% and the closing costs and factoring all that in. It's just like we had the number, and then it was just like okay, working towards hitting this number. And that's where it was kind of fun now to kind of get every month you're getting closer to that number. And then then it kind of focuses you, because at the same time we're still able to go on vacation because like when you have a budget, you can still allocate money. So my big thing is allocating money. Like if I want to go on vacations, and there's going to be a vacation budget where as long as we build up to that thing, then we can go on the vacation. So I'm big on like say I pay off my credit cards every month. Like I don't carry debt. Like that's a big thing for I kind of kept where I don't carry debt. Like as far as like credit card debt, like obviously mortgage and stuff like that, but like kind of debt payments, like school, all that kind of stuff, I make sure that like there's nothing. So that helped obviously as well as like as far as affording the mortgage where we didn't have anything. It didn't affect I guess the amount of money that we were qualified for. Uh, and then obviously, and then that's the thing is like we ended up uh, closing. So when we signed for the house, it was a bit chaos because the market was hot. Like so, as much as I'm telling you, like people were spending $150,000, $200,000 over. Um, the first house, the first like I guess release of the phase of release for the new build homes, it was like the phase 9 or 10 for this, and there was like 1,000 people, and there was like 100 homes. So we got there too late, and they were like people were kind of laughing at us, like you didn't know that like this house, like people were camped out from like a month earlier, I guess, for these houses. So just by sheer chance, like we couldn't find any. So I grew up in the city of Brampton, and we couldn't afford to live in Brampton. So we had to start now looking, and all our families in Brampton, and it was kind of like, okay, what's a city kind of close to Brampton where we didn't get too far away from the family? So Milton is like it's like probably 20 minutes from Brampton, so it's just another suburb city outside of Toronto. It's a very nice area, but it's developments. It's a lot of farmland. It's a lot of open land, and the house was still cheap, as it's like it said but it still was rapidly developing. So we ended up by sheer luck, like we went out and went to see if there's any releases, and they're like, yeah, we're actually having a release in a week. So we actually had to do like for a week, we had to do roll call, pretty much camp outside till the closing. So every like 6 hours, we had to come back to keep our name on the list, to be able to buy
What?
the
This
house.
is crazy.
It was almost like the way I looked at it at
It's
the
like a
time was
sneaker
like
release almost.
exactly. So I'm like people camp out for sneakers. I'm like I can camp out for a house. So I've never done the sneaker release thing, but I'm like I'll do it for a house. I'm like well, I'll and people were paying people to keep retain their spot in line, or like a lot of real estate agents were paying people to like just sit in line for them, and so it ended up being like a big business for a little bit, as far as like getting these properties. So we ended up getting the last pick for our unit. So it ended up being a 2 bedroom. It was like a townhome, like a 2-story townhome. So like no back, it was like a back to back townhome. So no backyard. You kind of had like a balcony where you could it was kind of like your front yard or your backyard in a way. Um, and yeah, it was like a small condo fee was like $60 a month, so it was very affordable. Parking was included. You got a garage, you can put one on the driveway. So it was like I said, it was good, but it was 2 bedroom, and it was like the last pick. So what ends up happening is, so we were like, okay, well, let's get it in the market. It's affordable, we can afford it. It was like 400,000, so it was under our budget. 2 years closing, and then so we did that, and then we had our a week later, we had to choose our upgrades. So what structural designs we wanted for our property, and they ended up saying, "Oh, we're having another release next week, so can you reschedule it?" So I was like, "You're having another release," but because I found that out before I sent out the email, I got my name. Like I went right there. I'm like, "Can I?" Because you have like a cooling period where you can exchange your property with under 7 days. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna switch. So I ended up doing it again. So I camped out for a week again, but this time, like I'm like number 2 or 3 on the list. So this time I got like top 5 pick of the unit. So we ended up exchanging our house for like a 3 bedroom and a corner unit for it to start off for our starter home. So it was kind of a
That's
interesting,
nice. It was interesting
long-winded
for
way. Yeah.
sure. That seems like an extreme process to say the least, but I can see how it keeps you excited, and it's like, oh, will I win it? It's like almost adrenaline rush, like you're gambling for a house.
Yeah,
Throughout that whole entire process, one thing that it really took away from what you said is that you literally reverse engineered your goal. Like you knew how much it was going to cost to get these houses. And then from there, you were able to create your budget so that you could hit those goals, so that you can still live life. Because you mentioned you were still traveling. So it's not like you were cooped up in the house, like, man.
Yeah.
So you were still excited. So I hope people really took that key and listen, like create your budgets, people. They're very important. So I guess your first deal experience was definitely different. The whole waiting for the 2 to 3 years. Would you have done it differently now that looking back at it?
Um, at the time, honestly, that was the best for us because we both like had like government jobs where um like you don't you're on a pay scale, you know in 2 to 3 years where on the scale you're gonna be. So it's just like I knew that like it's tight right now. So even we still had to qualify at the time. But I know when I actually came down to getting the actual mortgage, the numbers would be so much. There'd be so much more space essentially. So it was nice to be able to project that like yeah my income at this point is going to be at this like so it's kind of including a future kind of budget as well. So you kind of like you have the real numbers, but then you have the fake numbers at the same. So you're calculating both. So you want to
Yeah.
still keep the actual ones, but you have the potential as well that
Yeah.
you're also looking into as well. So, um, but the only thing I would change, I'd say, about closing the first, because we had always viewed it as a starter home. We're like, after our kids are out of daycare, we probably look into buying a detached house. So get out of like the condo kind of market. So we went the fixed route. So that was the at the time we're like yeah like it's safe whatever locked in, but at this time the like interest rates were dropping. So what ends up happening is we ended up buying a detached earlier than we expected when because our income jumped so much. We're like wait a second, we can actually afford a detached based on our current like you know numbers. And then it
Yeah.
was just but now it was like okay we're only 2 years into our 5 year potentially mortgage or like into our 5 year fixed mortgage essentially. So and then because interest rates had dropped so much, the penalty to break the fixed cost was like 18 grand. So had we been on a variable at the time, first of all, ours would have dropped. But most importantly, like we only had to pay 3 months interest penalty. So we had to essentially, break the penalty. Like I got because of the way I guess I forgot to mention like housing prices in the area they went crazy. So everything doubled. So whatever you bought essentially it doubled in price. So you got 100% return right away. So that's where it was kind of like obviously we kind of ate into our own kind of I guess equity and earnings and all that paying this penalty to the bank. It's almost like giving them free money in a way. So that's the only thing I look back on like had we gone variable because we kind of said that we were going to stay for the 5 years at least 5 to 7 years. But at the same time, we were kind of like, but if something good comes up, we're going to like obviously explore it. And then if
Yeah.
something good came up, and then right away we're like, oh, this is the time to kind of pull the trigger. And we broke the mortgage, and then we bought another new build, which is another 2 years. But like I said, because of the whole breaking the mortgage, it was kind of a bit of a headache.
So wait, they have laws that you can't break the mortgage because you guys are based out of Canada, correct?
Yeah,
They have laws that if you break the mortgage before the 30-year, like if you sell the home or if you do any move
yeah.
out, then okay.
So if you pretty much first like you have to live in your house for like over a year before you sell it, or you have to pay capital gains.
Mhm.
As long as you hit the year, whatever profit you make on your home, you keep. You're not taxed on that profit.
So
Okay.
that's
So
similar to out here, but I thought I heard you say that you have a 5 year loan. Like, so what happens after
so
the
so so
5 year?
so so so, so pretty much every 5 years you kind of renew. You
Like
get a
every
30
5 years.
year. So you get a 30-year mortgage, but every 5 years it renews. Like you renew. So if you
So
break it with the
adjust to the rate, so that you adjust
yeah
to the rate.
yeah just so you're right exactly. So you
So let
lock
me
in every
ask you,
5 years.
based on the experience of you, like seeing what your father went through with real estate while having a
Mhm.
job, and because having a storefront is commercial real estate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So with seeing that, with owning your own house since 18, with owning a house with your wife and your family now, how will
yeah.
those investments inform, or how would you leverage those experiences for your future experiences? Do you plan on continuing? If so, how would your investments play a part?
Um, so like right now, it's like I said, I guess we kind of pre-COVID, it was kind of like that's where we kind of like it was a weird time because what was happening in Canada was a lot of people stopped paying their rent. So and then the government said, hey, you because the government pretty much said it's fine if you don't pay your rent. So there's a lot of people that right now are still trying to get back their money during COVID, um, that they weren't collecting rent. So for us, we were like, obviously, like our income situation, we couldn't afford to carry multiple properties and not be collecting rents, kind of thing. So, like my pretty much the suggestion was from I guess our parents was just like it's better to kind of sit on the money. So we ended up liquidating everything during like COVID, during the whole shutdown of the borders and everything. So we sold everything. So that's where we kind of like were able to put the equity that we gained into our current home. So right now we don't have any investment properties at this current moment, but it's just kind of the biggest thing for us right now is once our kids are older and we're not paying all these daycare fees, we'll have the extra income to put towards another, I guess, a rental or a possibly like a vacation home or something of that nature.
So while the investment property didn't pay for your education,
Yeah.
which was the plan for your parents
Yeah.
originally, it certainly seems to be playing a role in terms of the future of your family, which
Yes.
is probably a lot more important
Yeah.
than just paying for the education. So you were able to figure something out.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good. Generational wealth. The thing about generational wealth is it comes in different forms and fashions, and that's what I've learned during the first, I guess, few interviews that we've had so far. A lot of people have had experiences with it, but it's not been the same. So because of your experience, you're gonna wait 18 years to get back into the market.
No, like I said, once our kids, I'd say within the next probably 4 to 5 years, I'd probably love to get back. Like once like we're not because we're paying like anywhere like $600 to $1,000 a month just for like childcare expenses.
And
So
in
it's just that.
Canada,
That's a
I'm
lot.
sorry to cut you off. Yeah. So in
Yeah.
Canada, where sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you
Yeah.
were saying childcare expenses $600 to $1,000 per month,
Yeah.
right? Got it. The question is going to come back to me. I have a question to follow up though.
That's
I'll edit it off,
crazy.
turn it out.
That's probably one of the main reasons why I keep my son at home because it's so expensive. Like,
Yeah.
I hear you, but
I mean, for me, that's gone down because at one point I'd say it was closer to $2,000 a month. So like I said, like that's been the biggest. Like had like a lot of like our friends, like they were able to have like the ones that started having kids later, they had the second properties and stuff because they had the discretionary income not having kids. But because we
yeah,
had kids fairly like a couple years in, like that money kind of shrunk away real quick as far as
yeah, I hear
discretionary income.
you.
So
I understand. I understand. Don't even have to explain. I have a little one myself. So I guess like now that you do have kids, do you try to like instill the same financial disciplines into them, like the stuff that your father taught you? Are you moving and telling them like learning, teaching them about like financial literacy?
yeah, so like they're starting to learn the value of money. So we have them like they'll work for the little chores here and there, then they'll save up to buy their toys and so that and they will play like some like I guess money games and stuff like that. Like we'll do like a little Monopoly here and there, or they kind of get a little kind of like taste of, you're letting on my property, you got to pay me X amount to stay here for a little bit. So it's kind of like, so they don't really understand it in a way, but it's kind of just a quick fun way of kind of, we kind of have like, makeshift rules as we play, but it's kind of just a fun way to kind of get them thinking about money in a way.
Yeah, like Monopoly is always fun. I feel like once you get older into like the college age, Monopoly gets crazy. It gets serious. People take it like it's a real life. But yeah, that's cool. So what does generational wealth mean to you, and what role has it played in your life?
Generational wealth means to me is just like that ability to kind of to provide, whether it's for your immediate family or other family members, just having the ability to do so. Like something comes up, or say another family member, falls ill, or there might be that emergency, just having access to that emergency fund where it's not breaking you, like it's not like you just have it, like I guess the best way to put it, like you just have it, like XYZ, you need $10,000 to hold, like you're short 10,000, and just like this person has, you have the 10,000 just to loan out, like you're not gonna miss it. It's not gonna burn a hole in your pocket. I feel like just having that ability to just help out whenever is needed, those random situations. I think just having that ability is what generational wealth kind of is to me. And I feel like my dad is kind of, he's kind of always been able to help out others. So I feel like he's worked hard to get to that point in life.
That's good. That's good. So now we're gonna take it back. Like, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
My 15-year-old self, uh, I would say just, kind of just probably do a little bit better in school. I just say probably just the focus. There's a lot of focus where like I could have probably applied myself better, and I was focused more on soccer than probably academically at the time. So there was a couple, like I guess Ivy League scholarships that had I had better grades, I probably would have got into. But it was just like, yeah, it was more due to my high school grades, that why I didn't actually end up going to like Ivy League school instead. So
Yeah, but you did get the soccer scholarship, so that allowed you to come to America and play for a little bit, no?
yeah, yeah, but like I had a couple like Ivy League where they wanted me to go back, and I think it was Brown University had offered me a scholarship, but it was contingent on me, like we're doing a couple courses, and I was just kind of like, nah, I ain't doing that. So like had I just done well to begin with, then it would have given me, I would have had more opportunities as far as choices, I would say. So I would have taken schooling a little bit more seriously from back then.
I hear you. I hear you. That's good. That's good. And it's always nice, like when we're able to look back and see what we could have done. But I guess like we did what was right at the moment and what felt, cohesive to what we wanted to. So we make decisions and then we just have to live by it because unfortunately we don't have a travel machine like to go back and change it. So yeah, I hear you. So Gavin, do you have any other questions before we close out?
Yes, thank you. The question did come back to me. When you mentioned how much childcare was, I started multiplying in my mind how much you're paying, and which threw me off. So I really wanted to ask, what is the down payment arrangement? You mentioned 20%, 20, and I
Yeah,
know the Canadian market isn't cheap. So
yeah.
do you guys not have like programs like we have, like FHA and conventional banking, where we get to put down 3 to 5%? You guys don't have that
So
straight
so
20?
you can put 5% down. You have to pay, there's almost an insurance cost that you have to pay for only putting 5%. So it's almost like a default mortgage kind of insurance, in a way. So if anything below 10%, anything below 20%, you have to pay for this insurance. I think it's a CDIC kind of insurance. So it's kind of like to avoid paying that money. Like if you have it, like, so it's one of the things we could have looked at the avenue of putting the 5%, and then kind of having more money left over, to potentially put into another property. At the time, we felt that like we just dump it, just have the lower overall mortgage, and just make the numbers work. Just doing the 20% in at the time. Just I guess our parents were always heavy on putting the 20% towards the house. We're able to use withdraw from our. I guess you guys have. I guess
Assignment.
you guys have like Roth or something, or
Yep.
like we have like our we can have our I guess our retirement savings that we're able to take out if it's going towards a home for your first home. You're able to take that money out and put it towards that. So it's like a first time home buyer loan to yourself in a way that you have to pay back into that account. So we utilize that as well. So we had like put the money in, got the tax refund, and then withdrew it out. So we have the tax refund plus that money, just to increase that payment. And then so yeah, it was just combination of those kind of loan, like pretty much those I guess service financial I guess loans to ourselves in a way that we had utilized.
See, the huge benefit is that you were financially prepared to do that, right?
Yeah.
Putting down 20% is pretty much leapfrogging the competition, because not only were you able to compete with corporations that were putting down,
Yeah.
you as an individual was able to bypass other residents or people buying the homes because they wanted to reside within them. So
Yeah.
that's smart. The other play on that is the reason why that was such great advice is because you get to always refinance your houses
Yeah.
and then pull out once they improve, and you don't have to think about or worry about the fees as much as someone else, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't have as much money or meat on the bone, as they say. What
Yeah.
advice would you give somebody who's 25 years old trying to get into the real estate market in Canada?
So my thing is like I would say like you kind of start. It's all about getting on the ladder. So it doesn't matter where you get on the ladder. It's just getting in. So whether and it's also it's getting in an area where like you could see yourself living long term. Like so you don't know where like you don't want to go to somewhere that's cheap, that's far from work. Because I have a lot of friends where like they move a couple hours away and just the commute and all that. It's kind of now they're looking to move closer, but finding somebody else now to buy from that property off you, and it's a bit of a headache. Like I said, we bought at the time we thought it was expensive. It was expensive for the city we lived in, but at the same time, we kind of took the leap because like our parents look at what they paid for their homes, and their homes are like obviously like double, triple the price of what they paid for it. And it was kind of difficult in a way where we looked at it the same, but it's kind of like we got in the market. I found, like I said, I found the new build was the best route for me because I gave me time to save. So that's where it's kind of like what's best for you. Like you got to kind of just figure out what your income situation is. Like at 25, is your income situation gonna be higher at 27? Like, are you able to project like your potential earnings? Like, do you have a side hustle? Like, is your business growing? Are you able to kind of so you might be able to afford more than you might be able to stretch it a little bit further because I at the time, like I said, we kind of stretched it a little bit, just off of thinking that we could afford more down the road. So we kind of pushed it, and then that kind of worked in our favor based on like I said, we spent more than we could have stayed. We could have stayed at the original house, but we switched it at the end. And like I said, getting on the ladder allowed us to kind of that's how it is in Canada. You buy the small property. We went from the two bedroom to the 3 bedroom to we have a 4 bedroom now. So it's kind of just working our way up, and then we bought, we sold, made profit, and kind of snowballed it and putting it towards the next property kind of thing.
So speaking of snowballing and moving your way up, what's your goal for 45? Where do you want to see yourself when you're 40, 45, 50? What's going to make you proud?
I mean, I want to have a couple properties for my kids. I don't want them to have to move far away, like to afford their houses. So I rather at some point get a condo or so where they can move close and just be in the area. So that would be the goal is just to be able to get a couple properties for them, just so the same way my dad did for me, and then kind of pay it forward.
I like that. I like that. I almost feel like it's as children, it's like our responsibility to like, I guess, pay our parents by just getting ahead just a little bit more and doing what they did for us as like the foundation. And then we just, add a little bit more sauce or more juice to it. And just help the next generation also. So that's awesome that you're paying it forward to your children. So, Gavin, if there's nothing else you would like to say, I would like to say thank you so much, Chris, for your time. Thank you for spending it with us. You could have been doing anything else.
Thank you
But
for
we
having me.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. For everyone watching, please hit the subscribe button, comment, let us know what you learned from this podcast, and we hope to see you next week. Bye.